Good afternoon and welcome to United TV. My name is Kamal Erkan. Today is July 19th and we have a lot of different topics to talk about. We had a pretty interesting week in United States, especially. So one of my client managers, Alp Santa, is going to join me. Alp, you can turn your camera on. If we can get a sound check from one of our people in the office because we're in the new studio. So you are the first actual kind of like guest of the studio.
Feels good to be here. It feels like we're in an actual studio. So.
All right. First we have a presentation on the HCC and value-based contracts. So, and before we go to those, just as a reminder for those who may be first time actually watching this, United Medical ACO is an accountable care organization. We have several different value-based agreements. Right now, I believe we have almost 80,000 lives under these agreements. And because also our core business is on the revenue cycle management, between this clinical and the medical billing side of the business, we see a lot of interference in some ways. And we want to actually discuss one of these today. That would be the risk scores and the takebacks and how the insurance companies can actually impact value-based contracts with these offsets and takebacks that they have throughout the year. Now, to give the background of the issue a little bit, when we say takeback, there are two timely terms in the insurance business. One is when we are submitting initial claims, and the other one is when the insurance company is requesting a takeback, meaning that they find some mistakes and they are going back and then request that money back. Now, for most insurances, it can be anywhere from 3, 4, and 6 months for us to initiate the claim. So if you don't file the claim, for example, for United Health, I believe it's 3 months.
3 months, yeah.
3 months. So if I file the claim on day 95, they don't process it because it's untimely. Then we have like if it's Highmark, it's 6 months. Right?
Yeah, Highmark is 6.
So if it's Aetna, it's 120 days. That means 122 day 122, we cannot submit that claim because we're going to get untimely. When it's on the other side, the takeback side, this can go up to 2 to 3 years.
Even more in some cases.
So now that there is a state limit, at least for Delaware, I believe it's for 3 years, but different states may have different rules. So we are, Alp is going to actually go through some of the examples and how this is impacting from the revenue cycle management side, how this is impacting our contracts. And then I'm going to give some other specific examples after Alp's presentation. So we are going to try the video presentation. So I'm going to start that now.
All right, sounds good. Well, first of all, again, thank you for having me in this show. It's
so this is your second or third time?
It's my second time.
Second time.
But it's been a while. I think it's been 2 years actually since the last time I joined. So it's definitely great to be back with more knowledge, working more, in the client managing role. So yeah. First off, again, as you explained, I'm gonna go over the insurance takebacks and what it means for the people that might not know about it. First, so it's basically the process where an insurance company, they recoup the money that they have already paid to a healthcare provider. Now, if some people that don't work in the healthcare space, they might be wondering why would they ever take back money that they already paid a healthcare provider? That's also a good question for me as well. since, I'm not, American, I wasn't born here. It's a completely different system. It was a, process that was very hard for me to grasp at first as well. But now, that we go through these, I am able to see that sometimes with, these things being more private on the private side, some, errors on the claims, errors on, patients' demographics information and all that stuff, they do trigger these takebacks from the insurance companies. So some of the reasons for these takebacks, as I mentioned, are, for example, the overpayments. Sometimes the insurers, they pay more for a single claim than what they should have paid. And at that moment, usually when we notice, we inform them. But if we miss and then they already overpaid as well, or if we use the modifier and they didn't take that into account, they try to take that money back. That's one reason. Another one, again, as I said, incorrect claim submission. Sometimes there might be, coding mistakes and modifier mistakes and stuff like that on claims. As we mentioned, I mean, that's why our company exists today, Revenue Cycle Management. That's what we fix, and these mistakes do happen. And sometimes those do trigger some insurance takebacks as well. Another one is prior authorization. I mean, as you know, with the American Surgery Center, with the surgeries, it's a very timely, time-consuming process. Sometimes, if these are not obtained for a procedure that should have been obtained, or even if we obtained and the insurance thinks that we didn't use it on the claim or it was misused on the claims, they do make these takebacks. And the last one I want to talk about was coordination of benefits. Now, this is a big problem for us because we are only as accurate as the systems provide us with the insurance information when it comes to these patients. So with these patients, they provide us a certain insurance information. We go check on our own systems, and then we see the information, then we act based on that. But the insurance companies, they update these information 6 months, even a year or two later, and then they come back to us and say, hey, you submitted an incorrect claim. You should have submitted this to another insurance, and this is not correct. And then they try to take this money back, which at the end of the day penalizes the provider, which is incorrect. So again, with the process of these insurance takebacks, what they usually do is they first identify, as in the insurance companies, they identify these overpayments, and then they notify us, which they usually work with a third-party company, and they're very, very hard to get a hold of. So they send us a notification through mail or fax, and then we receive these, and then we usually appeal them. And then it's a whole process that starts after that. They usually don't receive our appeals, or it takes some time to process those, etc. And then they send another notification. And if we still can't reach an agreement, they are able to offset from paying new day claims. So what this means is, rather than paying new day claims, they process a $0 check, meaning that they're offsetting that balance off of the takeback that they're making. Again, and for the healthcare providers, this has a big financial impact because, as I said, new day claims are not processing, so there is less cash inflow to the practices, which affects the practice's overall cash flow and financial stability. And then from our perspective, this also brings a big administrative burden, whereas then my team needs to go back on these accounts, look at every single account that was offsetted, paid, taken back, and then put all of these together to find out which claims are they actually offsetting, which claims they're taking back, why are they taking it back, which insurance do we submit, again, with the timely filing limits, as you mentioned as well. And finally, what we're mainly going to talk about today is its impact on the value-based contracts from the United Medical ACO standpoint, from the accountable care standpoint. Again, just a quick overview of the value-based contracts as well. There are two important things that these value-based contracts focus on. One is the risk of the population, and two is the expenditure of the patient population. So with that being said, there are some key components that they look at when they look at the value-based contracts. Number one is quality measures, and then the financial incentives, risk sharing, care coordination, data and analytics. And then if we were to put this in a timeline, basically how it works is for the value-based contracts, there is a full program here from January 1st of, let's say, 2023 until December 31st of 2023. And then for this program year, the results usually come out sometime between, July, August, September of the next year, so 2024. We're actually patiently waiting for our contracts from last year to finalize right now. And how they calculate these, expenditures, risk scores, etc., is based on process claims. Now, let's say they processed the claim for the 2023 program year, and then they calculated, the expenditures, patients' risk scores, and all that stuff, and all the paid claims are calculated as an expense. So once these are calculated as an expenditure, they also calculate the risk scores. As an example, what me and you we talked about during our meeting yesterday was, let's say an insurance company goes back 2 years. So for the program year of 2022, they pay an X amount to the medical provider, let's say, just as an example, $300,000. And then 2 years later, this is the fiscal year 2024, they try to take some of that money back. Let's say they try to take back $50,000 of that $300,000 paid. What happens is that contract in 2022 was already finalized in July, August of 2023. And then now we're in 2024, but they're not going back and readjusting those contracts based on how much money they took back and how much they calculated into the expenditure, which at the end of the day hurts our ACO incentives as well.
So just to give you an example from United Medical standpoint, our Highmark contract right now is almost like for program year 2023. So this is July. So from that, we are done with whatever expenses that they have given us. So if they believe that they made any overpayments, from the value-based standpoint, our ACO side, we took that as loss in that case because that increases our expenses. Now, next year, Highmark is able to, and I'm using Highmark, but it can be any insurance. They will come back and then take the money back, but they will not adjust the value-based contract expenditure averages. So that means, so while they're paying, they know that they're able to get their money back from us because they can do an offset. So that's the other thing that we need to mention. And we are going to have Trinidad Namara, our insurance commissioner, joining us, I believe, in the next 3-4 weeks. Our goal is to have a law that limits these takebacks in the same content as the initial claim submission. So that's kind of what we want to actually see, because the fee for service, if we just take a step back and then just explain the value-based contract, the goal for the value-based contract is go from fee for service and it rewards the providers. We want to shift from that and reward the providers, and this will be for quality and efficiency and also lowering costs. So if they can take their money back, but my program year is already final. There's another example which we talked about last week, and that was Medicare made a mistake with 2 cardiac codes. Now, luckily, that was discovered early on. But if it wasn't discovered in this year, so just United Medical standpoint, it was almost 6.2 million. There was an overpayment to our patients. So we would be taking that cost, and therefore we wouldn't be able to make our program year goal. And then Medicare next year will take that money back, and then they wouldn't change anything from their point. So I message Zal, but I don't think it happened. So the noise level from the kitchen. Yeah. So while I'm just doing that, I'm going to bring something out here. So one of the things that we are thinking about is if the insurance company maybe are they sabotaging the value-based agreements? And I'm not saying this is like deliberate, but If it's not, then we need to know, and then we need to say, okay, let's play the rule with the fair terms. So if I cannot send you claims 6 months, and I have to do that in 6 months, then you have to process my takebacks if there are any mistakes in a timely manner. So that is what we would like to see. Now, I don't know if Anthony is watching today, but I'm sure he's gonna watch this later on. I want this to be on our agenda, which kind of it is already, but the specifics and what already happened with Medicare, what has happened with Highmark. So there's a problem with Highmark. There's a problem with Aetna. There's a problem with MeriHealth. So all these insurances have a significant issues when they are processing these claims and leaving the provider almost with no choice but eat that cost. When 2 years later you come back and say, oh, I'm not going to cover the surgery. Well, I have an authorization, I have the proof of eligibility. Well, it doesn't matter. So I lied to you, so I'm going to take the money back. This is like you can only see this in The Sopranos. You are a little bit young for that, but maybe you caught up. So this is like an illegal mafia.
Yeah.
So these terms, just like if the mafia comes in and tries to shoot you on the foot, and then just because they're asking $50,000, what are you going to do? Just give them $50,000, right? Because they will do it. They are not going to actually. They don't care about the legal terms. This is, to me, it's kind of similar to that. So while we understand ACCs, the hierarchical condition categories, these are used to predict the future expenses, then it also changes those risk scores as well. So I want to actually share one pretty kind of specific example on the risk score. So every patient, this is, I believe, one of the Medicare patients, but every patient you look at, there is a demographic score. Now, when you look at the ACCs, every ACC is increasing the prediction of that patient's cost. So if they have, the first one is controlled diabetes, there is additional $1,162. If they have, the $816 goes to $1,162. If they have kidney failure stage 4, it goes to $2,200. This is the prediction. So then it says, if I spend less than that from the actual dollar amount, it says, okay, well, because this patient was high risk and you were able to manage it with actual dollars less than the prediction, then we are going to reward you for that. So now when you add the heart conditions, the I-50, and then you add the morbid obesity, and then you add, I don't know what J82 is right now, but that's fine. So it gets up to $10,000. So now, if these are not accurately calculated, or if someone changes these calculations later on, then it's a huge mess. So then there is no integrity of the value-based contract. Now we have to waste a lot of time to make sure that whether or not these are correct. Well, these are not accurate. So that's what we see. So therefore, we demand states, not just Delaware, because we are in 28 different states, so they all need to come up with the state law that doesn't allow the insurance companies to take the money back more than whatever the initial timely filing is. Like, for example, one other thing that I want to kind of explain on this, if you know how we have the corrected claims, so there's also a limit for that, right? So we can like, if the claim is already processed, I have new timely time the process starts. So like for Highmark, that's 6 months to 6 months, I believe. So if something is paid, let's say in month 5, 150 days. So that would be, let's say if we find some issues with that claim, we can reprocess and again for another 6 months. So that means in 11 months, we are done. So that should be the same. So they should not be allowed to take any money back. And the other thing, you actually have a really good understanding of this when we were working together, the TPA, the third-party administrators. Sometimes insurance companies, because they are 75% of the time, their business is TPA. So what they do is they take the money back from one account, but we don't know where that money goes. So if it goes to the same employer, or if it goes back to the central insurance dollars. So like, because 25% versus 75%, only 25% of their population is insured risk assumed population. The 75%, they're processing employers' money. So then what if they're taking the money and then they're not giving back to the employers?
Yeah.
Now, we have a specific example of this with the state of Delaware, as state of Delaware being the employer. There are a lot of money taken back, and then when we asked Aetna if these are going back to the state of Delaware, they couldn't answer that.
Yeah, it took them 2 years to bring someone from state of Delaware, and that was the first and only meeting.
Right.
that happened.
Right. So this is why we believe that there has to be a term limit with these, so then we can actually we can have a full commitment from these plans.
Well, same with the prior authorizations as well, right? I
Mhm.
mean, just circling back on that really quickly, because they don't let us get retro authorization for a surgery that has already happened.
Correct.
So then,
Even if the patient need it. right?
exactly, I mean,
Right.
what's the purpose of the authorization? Is to prove that this is medically
Right.
necessary and we're not wasting the insurance's money, right?
Mhm.
And even if we prove that, but it passed timely, it doesn't matter if the patient was morbidly obese at the time of the surgery or if they had other comorbidities. They just don't want to pay these, and especially with the takebacks. If a insurance pays as primary first and then they take back stating that they were actually the secondary insurance 2 years later, we have no chance but to get that denial from the primary, and then the secondary denies again. So it just is like a one-way road where we can't get out basically. So
Exactly. So I think this requires a close attention from our legislators and from our other providers, not just from United Medical ACO providers, but from other providers, other ACOs. And we need to actually fix this problem, because this transition of fee-for-service to value-based is important. So it's part of the AAA. And in order for that to be successful, certain things needs to be fixed. So that is what we have from this. So now, since Mr. Donovan is on a short vacation, so I'm gonna ask you to stay for the rest of the stuff.
yeah, he's probably listening to us now.
He maybe, I don't know, he didn't
Someone
answer.
can-
So so the BRICS is another issue that we discussed last week a little bit to better understand what's happening. Now, the Turkey is planning to join. There are 6 other countries are invited to join. And this change is going to be huge. And because it's extremely important, they are planning to have their own crypto, which actually, time to time I share these with you. So when we look at the Bitcoin right now, let's see where we are.
It's at 66,500.
It's close to like, well, I go with what balance I have. So,
Maybe that's my balance.
let me actually see what this does. So I have like 0.24 Bitcoin, like almost a quarter. So it's about 15,800. My initial investment is 6,800 voters, and this is up almost $1,000 since last week.
Yeah, 9.3%.
So right now, actually, the Bitcoin is at 66,600 today, but that is increased a lot. If you go to what's this day? Let's see. July 10th, it was at 57.7.
Yeah.
So it goes crazy, but this is a different issue. Bitcoin is one of the default crypto, but now BRICS is planning to have their own crypto, and I know you have some stuff that you prepped.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do follow the market myself as well, the crypto market. And one coin that I actually follow very closely along with Bitcoin is the Ripple. I don't know if you ever heard of that, XRP.
I don't have that. No.
Yeah, so Ripple is basically, it's a technology company, and then they focus on digital payment protocol network, also known as like cryptocurrency. And then they wanna establish that free global transaction process. Their main goal is that they're the main cryptocurrency trying to do that. And there's actually a lawsuit against XRP right now, started by the SEC. So that is the last hearing is next week. That's going to be finalized. And I saw from your Twitter that the BRICS is trying to use cryptocurrency for its payment system, and it's definitely a system that they would benefit from that as well. And I saw some news on the internet by that in regards to that as well. Yeah, so that was one thing that I wanted to mention with the XRP again. Not an investment suggestion, but more of like a background knowledge.
Yeah, the other thing that like China and Russia, they want the expansion. Apparently now the other countries, they are kind of slowing down the process. To me, that's a mistake. But this is one of the issues where you have, if there's an equal voice, which they shouldn't, because whichever, however they are able to contribute, fortunately they should be able to have more voice than smaller countries. But if it's equal, then it's a disaster. So from the business side, I can tell you that we set up something called Surgeons for Emergency Care. I told you about this before. It's going to be part of our group. This was the issue with that company as well is similar to what BRICS probably is going through. Equal voice for everyone. If they are not able to, they contribute 0.5% versus they contribute 20%. They have one vote. That's a huge disaster for any kind of businesses or any other, any other entities. So of course it is the same for the for BRICS. So if that's the case, now let's see how they're going to come out of that. The other thing is that I do talk to you about this time to time. This is going to change the world if it's successful, because when US dollar is the global currency, it gives us this intangible power. So intangible, it's not real, so you can't really actually hold it, or you cannot feel it, but you know it, you have it. So that's financial sanctions, that's being able to impact other smaller countries' economy, and also making money. So when you lose that leverage, that is a huge problem for us. So for us as United States, so now we may have two different months here, but that doesn't matter right now. So because we need to see this from our perspective, from this country. So you don't want to lose that. And if you misuse the power, then there will be always alternatives. So this history actually has shown that for so many times, it's not one, it's not twice, it's been out there quite frequently. So hopefully we can learn from our mistakes. So ready for my next one.
I actually saw it on your Twitter about the China Belt and Road initiatives as well.
Mhm.
I don't know if you wanted to talk about that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, because I know, I actually learned about this back when I was at Penn State in one of my economy classes. And even my economics teacher, he was a, American, had nothing to do with Turkey, but he was talking to us about in class, this was like a 350 people class, talking about how important it is, for Turkey. Turkey actually, with the name. And how, importantly, Turkey is located in that geopolitic area, because that's also the new Silk Road. That's another name that they call the China Belt and Road initiatives, and want to see your ideas on it as well.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like it's not just one issue there, right? So when I always tell people, I've been here for 25 years. So when you look at different countries, what they have to deal with. So United States, we have Canada, which are like the big state up there. The other one is Mexico, and that's almost another state. So we don't have a neighbor. We are not finding anyone in we don't have any physical war with anyone in the mainland. So when you are in Turkey, the situation is different. So you have Greece, who are investing a lot on their army. There is Russia. There's other East European countries. There is Armenian on the other side. There's Syria. There's Iraq. There's Iran. So, and there's Cyprus. So it's pretty crazy, where you have to defend your own land, your motherland, constantly. So that requires a lot of resources. So I believe Turkey is leveraging the situation, and we have seen this with Ukraine and Russia conflict. We have seen this in Israel conflict in Gaza, and they are able to take a stand where they're not saying that just like being a fan of like a football team. So I'm for Eagles, or I'm for another team that I don't know any names. So like, or it's not like I'm for this tennis player versus that tennis player. This is, hey, I'm my own. I have my own identity, and I'm gonna. My motivation is gonna be based on what helps my country the most. So I'm not gonna support NATO just because I'm part of it if NATO is wrong, or I'm not gonna support Russia just because we are neighbors and we do a lot of businesses. So and so far they are managing that very well. Now with this, Turkey needs to actually get out of this dependency of one system. So because Turkey, just think about this, we don't talk about some of these specifics, but Turkey cannot do trades directly with Iran. What's one of our biggest neighbors? We cannot buy anything or we cannot sell anything. Why? Because US doesn't want us to do it. Why? Because US put Turkey in, Iran in the terrorist country group. Based on what? How? You don't know. Saudi Arabia is okay, but Iran is not. So then you know that it's not about religion. So it's not about human rights. It's not about this or that. It's all about what's right for US. So then Turkey needs to do the right thing for them, and they actually, at least for the foreign relations, they are doing a really good job. So this crypto, and I think that's why they want to be part of BRICS, is because they don't want to put all of their eggs in one basket. Right. So now there are two systems, because remember, the global currency is not just about using dollar, but using the entire system. So that system, allows the ruling country to see how you are doing the trade, who you are doing that trade with, how much are you buying, how much you are selling. Everything is in their system. So that's really important. So that's why Turkey is gonna support this. And I think it will be one of the really active members of BRICS, because from the economy, from the logistics where we are, that's gonna impact their decisions, and they're gonna probably take leverage on that. We'll probably see a lot of good things come out for them, for Turkey. But we live here, my home is here.
That's correct.
So I say this all the time. So I've been here almost similar to your total age. I lived in this country, it's my home. So I have to make sure that our next topic is kind of related to this, our kind of dementia area, range presidents or presidential candidates are not ruining this. So that's why you have to be responsible with what you have. You cannot just take advantage of situations. You have higher responsibilities with the high power. So that's if you use that, if you misuse that, then things are not going to work out, and other countries are going to look for other alternatives. So hopefully that doesn't happen. Not sure if I answered your question,
Yes.
but I thought I did.
Yeah.
So this week was an interesting week, as I mentioned. And unfortunately, you know, one of those things where I don't feel good about saying that I knew this. I said this so many times, it's on the records. I knew this was coming. This is the assassination of former President Donald Trump. Luckily, it was not successful. If it was, then we would be in a huge trouble for this country. This can take the country to a civil war at this point, because many people may or may not understand, but there is a pretty large groups on each side where they're actually on the extreme side. So I can see the tension. There is not many people in between anymore. It used to be a lot of people, like 80% would be in between. But now it's almost reversed, like 20% in between and then 40-40 on each side. And that is very dangerous. For this incident to happen, and if it was successful, it could be really bad. But what I see, the reason I also wanted to bring this, why do we have to pick between a 78-year-old and an 80-year-old? And it's even kind of like, kind of in a way funnier when the 78-year-old calls the 81-year-old old or unhealthy. So, right, so to me, they're at the same level. Now, Trump is a showman, so he's a good showman. Now, this happened, and I know that this has nothing to do with his people. It happened, I think it's an individual incident with that guy. I don't think this has anything to do with Democrats and Republicans, because if it was done by the deep state, they would finish it.
Right.
They would not just leave this. And if it was done by his people, he wouldn't take that risk, like going from here. He's 78 years old. I mean, he's not going to take that kind of a risk and then get shot on the ear and then risk that. So that's crazy. So that's how I'm able to rule out those two situations. Now, the thing is, he came out of this with a great a great impact on his campaign, where he gave this picture, and it's almost like you can't help but believe that if this was a stage picture, right? This is that good. And I don't think it's a stage picture, but it's a great picture for him to be able to give that. Would I be able to do that if I was shot in my ear and then just come out and then say fight to people? I don't think so.
Well, he was playing golf the next morning.
I know. So he's a different animal from that point, but would you be able to do that?
I don't think so.
Right?
I think I would be
So-
scared to get
Right.
back out for a while.
And he's gonna probably, if Biden doesn't step down, he's gonna win this election. Trump is going to win this election. So now, last week, I know you watched the session with Sean. I texted him in January saying that Biden should step down. He's not actually altogether. I mean, I work with the Democrat candidates here very closely. And for me not to feel comfortable about the presidential candidate is sad. There are a lot of good alternatives to Biden. He's 81 years old. He's 2 years younger than my dad. And I asked my dad again last week if he would run for the president's in the Turkey election. He said absolutely not, because he's like, I can only manage what I have to do throughout the day just on my own, without dealing with other people. So this requires a lot of energy. Leave it in good terms is the right thing to do. So I don't want to have an 81-year-old president. I don't want to have a 78-year-old president. How can they relate to what we are going through?
Right.
That's a retirement age, way past retirement age, and they need to probably just go and rest and play golf together, and then leave the stage for younger people, and then we'll see if that's ever gonna happen. So we'll find out. So now I believe those what we had today. We have another session with Dr. Ergal. He's going to be here in the next 15 minutes, hopefully. First time we're going to do the Bariatric Friday in the same studio. Now with our new office, one of the best part of the new office is we have a nice studio here. We'll be able to host other people, other guests as well. Just looking forward, now we're working with this last topic. Biden may step down today or tomorrow, so it's very close. Who's going to be next? I hope it's not going to be Kamala Harris. It would be a disaster. I work with 3 women in Delaware race with Democrats, 3 very powerful, very engaged, very experienced people. So, but Kamala Harris is a disaster. It would be a disaster if she's the one who's going to run for the race. Hopefully that's not the case. Although from the fundraising standpoint, she's the only one who can actually utilize the funds that Biden already raised. So not sure how that's going to work, but hopefully she is not the one who's going to, I mean, if she runs, she's going to lose anyway, but hopefully they can come up with someone who's qualified to do this job. So again, we'll be back with the Bariatric Friday. It's going to be an interesting week next week, starting from today, actually. Let's see how things are going to work out. Next week, we have Brian Townsend. He's going to be with us. I think it's going to be his 4th or 5th time, maybe. He's a great advocate for our provider network and someone who really understands the issues in Delaware. And we are going to be with him, and we'll have our clinical presentation as well. So thank you for joining us, and we'll be back in 15 minutes. Thanks.
Thank you for having me as well.
Well, thank you for joining us.